virtual field trip to the land of Mesopotamia. Welcome aboard, kids! Today we'll be exploring Mesopotamia.
Kick back and relax to your field trip that literally involves no moving.
Mesopotamia is found in the region of the Middle East, which is mostly in Asia. Some huge bodies of water that's near this land are the Mediterranean Sea and the Persian Gulf. Even though these huge bodies of water are here, the actual climate of Mesopotamia is a dry desert climate. Barely any rain or snow happens in Mesopotamia.
Fun fact, Mesopotamia is also known as the land between two rivers, and is also known as the Fertile Crescent, and is also known as the cradle of civilization. Wow, so many nicknames.
You might be wondering why it's called the land between two rivers. Well, it's because there are two rivers that are around Mesopotamia. They are called Tigris and Euphrates. The source of these two rivers are actually another two rivers called the Karasu River and the Murat River. The mouth of Tigris and Euphrates is Shat al-Arab, which is a body of water that was made by the two rivers. As centuries passed by, this lake was a source of conflict for Iran and Iraq. Well, we're getting off topic, so let's come back to Mesopotamia.
Another fun fact, Tigris is based off of the word tigra, which means fast or arrow-like. Also, if you didn't know, Mesopotamia was an ancient society, and now Iraq is where Mesopotamia used to be. The landforms in northern Mesopotamia were sandy plains and hills, which fits with Mesopotamia's climate. On the other hand, the southern Mesopotamia has marshy areas and wide barren plains. Weird, huh?
Mesopotamia seems like a terrible place to live in, so why did people live there? Well, people were attracted to this place because of the rivers, the fertile soils that the rivers brought, plentiful water resources such as fresh water to drink, and some rich river valleys that gave them a surplus of food. In the old days, rivers would mean a place to survive and would be a start to a non-nomadic way to live, but this was all too good to be true.
The Mesopotamians had trouble living in their area. They had floods sometimes because the rivers would overflow, sandstorms and droughts because the climate was so hot and dry, and the poor fellows had a very limited amount of resources, which meant that they didn't have that much wood or metal. These would make things much harder for the Mesopotamians.
However, the people in Mesopotamia were very clever and found solutions to these problems. They made irrigation systems that controlled the floods with dams and ditches. That also solved the problems of droughts because the Mesopotamians could use water that they could control of. The limited resources didn't become a problem after they started to trade with other civilizations. Also, instead of using wood to build houses, the Mesopotamians would make mud bricks and use those as building blocks for houses. Smart thinking.
If you were to search up landmarks in Mesopotamia, most likely the Hanging Gardens of Babylon and the Gates of Ishtar would show up. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon is one of the seven wonders of the ancient times. Sadly, only remains of the garden exist today, but it is still a great piece of art. The Gates of Ishtar is still standing and is a beautiful sight to see. These gates were the main entrance to the city Babylon and was on the list of the seven wonders, but got replaced by the Lighthouse of Alexandria. Mesopotamia has some amazing landmarks.
The environment affected the lifestyles of Mesopotamians, such as food, jobs, religion, their tools, and transportation. The land had fertile soil for farmers to use, so the Mesopotamians invented the cedar plow. The cedar plow had holes and placed down seeds using the blades of the plow. This made agriculture much easier for the Mesopotamians.
The Mesopotamians had their ways of traveling. Since they had long and distant plains, the Mesopotamians made rides with wheels to make transportation and trading easy. The Mesopotamians also made boats since rivers were near where they lived. Mesopotamian boats had flat bottoms, high curving ends, and has a stem. A stem is the very front part of the ship if you didn't know.
Mesopotamians were able to grow a lot of crops and food, such as wheat, beans, onions, melons, lettuce, apples, grapes, pears, apricots, and a variety of herbs and spices.
Ancient Mesopotamia even had its own religion. It was a polytheistic religion, which means it has more than one deity that they worship. The Mesopotamians were very spiritual and thought that there were demons possessing people, so they became exorcists, someone who takes demons out of someone. Since there were lots of floodings and natural disasters, the Mesopotamians believed that gods were responsible for these unpredictable disasters. So they treated the deities with care and respect to calm them down. But it was actually the environment that caused those disasters. Also, the Mesopotamians treated the gods well since they believed that the gods gave them everything.
Mesopotamians' jobs were important. Some jobs that are common and were needed to help the community survive were the farmers and fishermen. The farmers were there to make crops and food using the fertile soil. Fishermen went out to the rivers to catch fish and gather water resources.
Well, kids, that's the end of our field trip to Mesopotamia.
It was a long journey, but we hope you learned a lot.
See you guys next time, and we're out.
Hi there, he's Henry,
And he's Mark.
and today we will be your tour guide for your trip to ancient China. So hold on to your hats and set your time machine destination to 3000 BCE because we're going to ancient China.
You will find ancient China in Asia, specifically Eastern Asia.
The major bodies of water in ancient China were the South China Sea, Indian Ocean, Sea of Japan, the East China Sea, Bohai Sea, and the Pacific Ocean.
The two rivers that the ancient Chinese civilization were found upon were the Yellow River. The mouth of the Yellow River is the Bohai Sea. The source of the Yellow River is the Bayanhar Mountains. The other river is the Yangtze River. The mouth of the Yangtze is the East China Sea. The source of the river is the Qinghai.
The climate of ancient China is scorching hot, humid in some places, and freezing cold in the highlands.
The major landforms of ancient China are the Tibetan Plateau, Himalayan Mountains, Gobi, and Taklamakan Desert.
Some natural challenges that were in ancient China were the Himalayan mountain range because of its huge mountains, the Gobi Desert because of its blistering heat, typhoons, which are basically bigger hurricanes that cause downpours because they cause floods, and finally hostile animals like bears, tigers, and leopards.
Now here are some things that attracted people to China. Number one is diverse food. In China, there is food from peaches to chicken to jellyfish. Another thing that attracted people to ancient China were rivers. Where there are rivers, there are resources in food and water and farmland. Another thing that attracted people to ancient China was their diverse climate. There are hot deserts which usually have ore deposits and plants only found in deserts. There are also cold mountains which have ideal conditions for growing rice. And lastly, there are places with normal temperature.
One of China's man-made landmarks was the Great Wall of China. This is how the environment influenced ancient Chinese technology. There were a lot of trees, so the Chinese made paper, printing, wheelbarrows, boat rudders, and matches. There were silkworms, so the Chinese made silk and kites.
There were minerals like iron, sulfur, potassium, etc., so the Chinese made compasses and gunpowder. There was clay, so the Chinese made porcelain.
This is how the environment influenced transportation. There were horses, camels, bulls, and human slaves, so the Chinese had them pull chariots and horses and camels be ridden on. This is how the environment influenced food. There was water, so there were fish, shellfish, and crustaceans. There were farms and wild plants, so there were fruits and vegetables and wine from grapes. There were wild and domesticated animals, so there are eggs, chicken, pork, lamb, and beef.
This is how the environment influenced religion. Taoism believed in living in harmony with nature and following its example. Confucianism believed in a bettering society. Last but not least, Buddhism believed in rebirth and the Buddha.
This is how the environment influenced Jobs. The jobs in ancient China were scholars, doctors, warriors, farmers, artists, craftsmen, and merchants.